Well, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. I'm really grateful that you're all here. I'm grateful to your support, and you're going to hear a great show today. We have Ben Cobb, and they just started their furnace up. We just started ours up, and I think that's happening pretty much all over the country. I'd like to do a little housekeeping. To tell you about what we're doing presently. We have a show opening next week with Rob Stern, but it's going to be an ongoing thing that we're doing a little bit differently. Not only will we hosting the exhibition here in the gallery, but we have a new exhibition space at Creative Pinellas. And so we'll be doing several lectures, several demos. So I think it'll be really a great thing for us and for the community. I wanted to show you some of the things that we've been working on. So Danielle's gonna bring up a couple of images. We're expanding our hot shop so that we can have people over in a safe distance from each other. And I think you'll be really pleased to know that we'll be able to open up the whole corner of the room, and you'll be able to see quite a bit more of our viewing area and watching the artists. And our new filming capability will allow us to actually film inside the Glory Hall as well. So we're very, very excited about that. And I do want to let you know that we are open by appointment. We would love to see you in person. And it's one thing that we would really like to do is to have you drop in occasionally. Thank you to Mary, Danielle, and Irene for doing the presentation today, and particularly Ben for being here. And Mary, take it away.
Thank you, Duncan. It's so exciting to be part of this gallery that is constantly pushing the boundaries, doing new and expanded outreach to the public and education, and promoting our artists who we value so much. Few things, please enter your questions and comments in the chat button below at the bottom of your screen, and we'll relay them to Ben, and he'll answer them as best he can. And he's going to show you a lot of different types of work that he created throughout his career. And he wants to let you know that even though some of those pieces aren't available, commissions are possible for the work, and there is other work available too. Ben's coming to us today from the Tacoma Museum of Glass. He's been with the museum for many years and leads the team there. He's really worked with other amazing artists over the years, and his work shows the depth and breadth of his experience. You'll see as he goes through his presentation how he's expanded his skill set, how he's constantly pushing his own envelope. So we're so thrilled to have Ben here today. So thank you, Ben. Let's welcome him, and look forward to hearing what you have to show us.
Right on. Well, thanks again, everybody, Mary, Duncan, Danielle, Irene, for having me. This is a great opportunity to reach out in a time where we all wish we could be in the same building, but we just can't. So this is kind of the new norm. So again, my name is Ben Cobb. I work out here at the Museum of Glass, where I've been a member of the glass blowing team since we opened in 2002. So going on 18, 19 years now. I grew up in Newport, Rhode Island, where I started blowing glass as a teenager, as an after-school job, and it just kind of grew into a career for me. And I did go to school in upstate New York, where I met my wife, and we just celebrated our 16-year anniversary. So we have two young kids out here, Posey and Petal. You'll see some pictures of the fam. They're 9 and going on 12. And yeah, it's just a really busy time. So without further ado, let's get right to it. I'm going to show you a lot of images today, and I'm going to talk briefly about some and more about others. So let's go for it. All right, so I just, this is a nice photo that that was captured while we were making something. And it's just kind of this, it's smoky, flamey. It keeps us interested. It's one of the reasons why, we're sort of stay interested in glass. Next. This is the fam. This is a little vacation, rare vacation up in the San Juan Islands a few years ago. Everybody's a little bit more grown up now. Next. So this is the kids. We spent a lot of time outdoors, and this is actually a COVID trip out to Palouse Falls in Eastern Washington. That's our dog Harley. Petals, the blue sweatshirt, and Posey May is the lady futzing with her hat. So my wife Kala in the background. This is a trip last year on spring break. We went down to Zion and Bryce Canyon, just amazing. And the thing that I really love about this photo is the depth of color and richness. It looks like a painting. And it's, a really great cell phone pic. Next. Here's another COVID trip that we did, and this was a hike up to Sleeping Beauty is the name of the trail, but there's about a sheer 2,000-foot drop on the other side of where Kala is sitting there. And in the background is actually Mount Adams, which I think we can see in the next photograph. There you go. So this is kind of give you some framework about what inspires me and what interests me and why I do what I do. Next. Who didn't make a lot of food while they were on, quarantining? So I was supposed to be in Italy with my family, and this is a wonderful bottle of wine from some friends in Pigaro. It's a very small town in Umbria that I've been a visiting artist at a couple years in a row now, and I was supposed to be over there again, and I couldn't. So we were thinking of our friends Tom and Colleen, and we were having pizza and our last bottle of rosé. So it was just it was a nice time. So this is right in our kitchen where we also varnish things and sand things apparently. Next. So I spend a lot of time out in the water. We have a small runabout and we do a lot of fishing. This is the Puget Sound, and this is the view right outside of the museum. And if the photo was better, the museum would be in the lower right-hand corner of that picture. So that's Mount Rainier. Next. Another great photo. This was just about a week ago when we were suffering through all the smoke. So this is a combination of smoke and fog, early morning on the water, right off of Vashon Island, looking straight over at Rainier. Next. So I'm going to show you a few things in my house. I'm very fortunate to be here at the museum and have a great community of makers around us. And a lot of what we do is we trade. We inspire each other, we work for each other, and sometimes we give each other, pieces of our own artwork. And a great thing that I do is I collect goblets and tumblers. So there's a bunch of goblets up top here, or sorry, tumblers up top from some different friends and makers. And then a wonderful painting here, which is a burnt wood painting on a cedar shingle by Brian Pike. Next. Other side of the shelf, and you might see some familiar stuff in there, handmade lampshade there floating, a nice ceramic piece on the wall. It's a collaborative work with Jeffrey Mitchell, Dick Weiss, and Cappy Thompson, 3 powerhouse artists out here that I've become lucky enough to, and fortunate enough to call them friends and colleagues. When we're looking at the shelf, we got a little Gabe Feen in there, and I got some, a piece by Fred Call, and a bunch of tumblers by Janusz Pozniak, Lynn Reed, and Salt and Shaker glass. The lower piece I'll talk briefly about is it's called A Meteor by Laura de Santillana, and I was lucky enough to be to work with Laura de Santillana and become friends with her over the course of the last 18 years, and made a lot of work with Laura. And she recently passed away, so it's an unfortunate loss. Next. This is a good photo, kind of looking out into my backyard. We're in the beginning stages of a big project. We're building a garage and studio. Not necessarily a hot glass studio, but a mock-up space and a place to construct things. And wonderful print by Preston Singletary, another good colleague and somebody I would consider a friend. So next. Here you go. And this is right, the foundation just got poured yesterday. So this is the 930 square foot, 18-foot tall garage studio that we'll have built. And this is our Harley walking across, rescue boxer. So next. Our office. I was my wife and I, we do a lot of remodels on our house ourselves. And as we approach school, our kids are not back in school, so it's homeschool and it's remote learning. So we gave up our office and we remodeled the office, and it's so nice now. And we made this big built-in bookcase where we were able to display some art. We have a nice cut print or painting on the wall, which is John Drury and Robbie Miller. We have a Nancy Callan orb up on the top right, and a painting by Joseph Rosano, and this great textile piece by Helena Perriott, who's a good friend of mine's daughter. So Charlie Perriott, his daughter Helena Perriott, has become quite a maker and wonderful artist. So next. Most recently we worked for a woman named Andrea Dejo, who is a wonderful printmaker and all-around awesome person. But her medium is mostly in paper. She makes tunnel books. You have to look that up. I don't have enough time to explain it. But we made some wonderful work for her at the museum, and she sent me a few prints since then. I love a lot of 2D work. I have a lot of prints and a lot of paintings that are around the house, and this is a great example of some of her work. Next. It's a little digitized photo there, but this is a painting by Robbie Miller, and this is from '06 at a big Dale Chihuly blow that we had here at the museum. And when we went on lunch break, Robbie would run out to the floor and grab Dale's paints and make a bunch of paintings. And then at the end of the week, he gave everybody on the crew one of his drawings, this is fantastic, and it's a treasure. And Robbie's been an awesome person to get to know. Next. All right, goblets. So this goes in a little bit to my work here at the museum. We have a really tight crew of 5 people here, 4 full-time, 1 part-time cold worker. And we make a lot of different things for visiting artists here. And sometimes we make a lot of really big stuff. One of my favorite things to do is make goblets. What you're seeing here is actually the prototype for the goblets that we made for our annual auction. So every year during our Red Hot Gala, I will design and make a limited edition run of 50 cups. And this was this year's cup, and we just finished them because we just had our gala last Saturday. Next. Here's a good photo of 98% of our crew is me in the front, my wife right to my back left if you're looking at the screen, Sarah Gilbert on the right. In the very back is Nick Davis, who's our tech, and to his right, looking at the screen, is Kristen Elliott and his wife, Carrie, there in the purple. The lady in the middle is Ayla Yanakaitis, who's no longer here at the museum, but she was our marketing director. Next. So this kind of starts my slideshow, and I always start with this photo just to kind of show everybody like that glass making, and especially in hot glass, it's a team sport. It's a little bit closer to sport than work. And we really enjoy it. So on my left here is Alex Stisser, dropping color. I just am holding the shears and cutting the color, and Gabe Feenan there holding the pipe. And the really confused woman in the background is Gay Outlaw. And she was a visiting artist here. Yeah, it's probably 13, 14, 15 years ago at this point. And yeah, so it's just, we're all a little bit younger there. Next. Here's a video. I was fortunate enough to have a residency here at the museum last year, and this is something put together by our AV department. So I think this is a few minutes long. We'll let that roll. I started blowing glass after school, and I kind of always planned on going to school for science, for marine biology. And one of the guys I worked with said that I could go to art school. The first day we made some smaller works that all get mirrored. They're really easy to start up and get into, while I had Courtney make some stripes and some cups for me for what we're going to do today and tomorrow. He understands what I'm looking for, and I can just let him go. I had a list of these new patterns that I wanted to try, and they're super time consuming to do. So if I'm working on my own with one other person, it would take me so long to move through these ideas. Earlier this year, I did a project based on shellfish in the Puget Sound in our warming waters, and more red tide, less days to harvest. all of those things. So I'm going to try and relate some of the forms that we're going to make to that. So we're going to work on strictly making sort of a form inspired by a mussel shell. I think what I've discovered about what I like to do and who I am is I'm a problem solver. So I like to try and figure out how to make things. I wanted to explore these panels that will be cut up into shapes afterwards. So no longer just a rectangle, but trying to use some of the elements in my work that reference microcosm and take them out of their square format and make some interesting little shapes. My plan for the week is to sort of approach these 3 projects and push each one of them a little bit so that when I walk away from here at the end of the week, the potential to have a few pieces for some gallery exhibitions, as well as some new work to push towards these more project-based work as opposed to gallery work. As a glassmaker and an artist, no matter what you do, it's difficult to sort of make a living and, you know, have that split focus where you have to pay the bills and you have life, but you also want to pursue your ideas because you think they're worthy of having in the public eye. So I think when we're working here 40, 50, 60 hours a week for other artists, we're essentially these tools to help them realize their idea. And we do that for 40 to 50 people a year. You know, you want that opportunity too. And I think we work in the public eye. There's a lot of folks here who come in every day and watch us. Hey, how are you? Nice to see you. You know, they ask us about our own work. So it's important to have that support to be able to explore a little bit of our own work. So glass is flexible, glass is rigid. I think it's there. It's fragile, it's durable. It's a material that can be just about anything. Nice work. Certain aspects of my work, I try to use all the inherent properties of the material in each of those pieces. Ooh, so that saved me some breath here because that covered a lot of ground. But the way that we're going to approach the rest of these images is we're going to go back to 2005, 2006, which is a time where I first started making things that I felt that I wanted to share in the public eye. So basically, my first exhibition was 2005 that I was proud of the work that was created. And we'll look at that stuff and then we'll see how it develops over the past 15 years. So here's some pieces, and I believe they're called cattails, and they were shown at the Vetri Gallery out here in Seattle. And this was just my approach to making things is to understand how to use the material. I wanted to understand technique before I tried to strike out and apply that technique to an idea of my own. So these are very straightforward, sort of a technical exercise using Marini and Incolmo. They're about 20-something inches tall. Next. These are the first sort of window pieces that I made, that were on view, sort of a pill and a sphere. And just, I like, you know, the juxtaposition of, you know, pairing 2 shapes together, it makes a nice composition, if you will, and then trying to figure out color. So these are 2 different layers of red to get that nice rich depth, and the windows allow you to see into and through the vessel. So there's references that are organic in there, but also with there's some architectural references as well. Next. So here's this photo, and try to remember this one. This is the first grouping of stomachs that I made. And I was always interested in the sciences, and that's, you know, the things that I really latched onto. The things in my childhood that I remember were like dissecting frogs in physiology class and wondering how things worked. And then I also have a degree, you know, a minor in sociology. And so the conversations that occur sometimes around my house tend to fall around, you know, societal issues and whatnot. But I was always interested in how people perceived, you know, what was going on on their insides and how that translates to who they are and the outside world. Next. 2007, next photo. This is just a little bit larger scale, and this is exploring some of the natural things around me. This is titled Stone. Next. This is a stomach and a belly, and so the belly on the right is sort of looking at human proportion. So a lot of life drawing and trying to get the proportion of that form to sort of evoke, you know, maybe a grumpy old man leaning back with his hand on his hip, and the stomach in the foreground. So those pieces are a little bit on the larger side, 36 to 40 inches tall. Next. This is another stomach and a pleated ventricle. So looking at the heart, and just fascinated by how things work. You know, again, being a problem solver, just trying to understand how this stuff works. And that's inspiring to me. And the forms, you know, these organic forms, organic shapes of the windows paired with sort of a crisp, modern aesthetic. Next. So again, influenced by nature through form and color and palette. This is from some of my travels. I was in Antibes, France. I was doing a residency in Biot, and we were walking through this open air market. And these are just, there's some wonderful images from that, but here's some fennel. Next. 2008 and 9. So one of the things, again, I'm a fly fisherman. I don't discriminate. I'll fish with gear as well, but this is great fun. Right before kids, my wife and I, we went down to Cabo, and this is fly fishing for rooster fish, which I think are awesome looking. Never seen anything like that before. And it's really cool. And you see their fin kind of cutting through the water. Here's another couple of these pleated ventricle pieces. Again, a take on different chambers of the heart. Now I've taken the color out and replaced them with stripes. I wanted to work on an idea that evoked the idea of muscle fibers or sinew. And so the color is added complexity. And so here's working with the stripes just to see how it goes. Next. We'll add in layers later. So here's a liver of a fish that it's not a great photo, but it kind of speaks to some of the forms that inspire me. Next. Some great garlic. Just look at this for the visual texture and color. Next. Here's a lobated sinew, and so you can see the influence there with these stripes and the light hint of white and red. Now this was made. I created a 120-degree jig or mold that, as I'm making the form, I get it really hot and I press it into that mold so it has a ridge on the back. So the three of these stand together and just kind of lean against each other, making a really nice dynamic form. Next. This, again, one of my favorite pieces. I have a few of those, and I think I still own this one, but it is pleated lobe, and it's just very simple. In my eyes, very elegant. Not a lot of color to it. Just it's great. That's great. Speaks to me. Next. The other thing that I got introduced to going to the Pilchuck Glass School and teaching up there is printmaking, and I learned that I really like printmaking. And I had this idea of wanting to recreate microscope slides, and so my mom was a lab tech for many years, and she helped develop a lot of different things. But I remember as a child going through the attic and looking at these slides, and they were this weird pink color. And I just always sort of have that in my mind. I love looking through a microscope and seeing what's going on. So I wanted to translate that. And these are prints, a ghost print, just trying to capture something that you might see through a microscope. Next. There's a few of these, I think, coming up. Here, yep. Next. And these are sort of an investigation in how these are the first step into making these into glass, which we'll get to in a little bit. Next. This is mitosis, separating the bubble, making it look like it's pulling apart. Next. This is another great inspirational shot, inspiring. Just putting that in there, this is a trillium, and we find these in the springtime out here in the Northwest, and it's just great. Nice lines, delicate lines, and a little hint of color in there. Next. This is a stomach in lozenge. And again, you can start to see how like the forms become a bit taller, a little bit more abstract, a little bit slicker than the very, very early ones. Next, starting to add in a little more color. Took a little break. I was invited to do this teapot show in Pittsburgh, and I came up with this. I do believe at the time I was super busy making a lot of work, and this was kind of a nice distraction. And I had never made a teapot before, and I'm thinking, how am I going to make it my own? What's going to make it interesting? So this is the elephant and the mouse. And the title kind of came out as I was working through the drawing and making them. And once they were finished, one of my coworkers was looking at it and said, it kind of looks like a mouse. And somebody else, it kind of looks like an elephant. And just kind of thinking of the story, how elephants are able to be afraid of mice. I just thought that was a great title. Next. Grr, this is a little Posey May just born. So this must be 2011. Next. Or 10. Oh, she was born in '09. It's the other one, was born in 2011. Sorry. This is a clove and a stomach. And now here's where you can really kind of see, I don't know, for me, my eye is starting to develop and change as I'm working and making things. Next. Lobated suture. So putting the canes out in a little different direction gives you a much different take on a pattern. Next. And I put this in there as a stratified lozenge. And one of the things about glass making, as you go along, the history of Italian glass making, the technical side of things, is to hide how the thing is made. So you are left in wondering. And one of the things I really liked was this seam that you can see on the left side of the image where the canes come together. Normally that's something that you want to try and hide. For me, I think it's a beautiful moment where you get these threads kind of coming together or pulling apart, and I want to highlight that. So that's something that I really latched onto, and you'll see some more of that get pushed in some more further on. Next. This is sutured lozenge in Morchella. So Morchella is the genus name for morel mushrooms, something that we like to go and look for in the springtime out here. Next. Turtle shell. I mean, this kind of speaks of it itself. You can see the radiating lines in the form. Next. Influences this. So this is visceral pod. Next. And this is sutured stomach. And so again, this is a great story. When I first sent some of these works to be exhibited at a gallery, I looked online and I noticed that they didn't have titles. And I was like, I sent you guys titles. What's going on? And she's like, has nobody talked to you about this? And I said, no, let me in on it. I said, well, we just felt that the word stomach was a little much for some people. I said, oh, really? He's like, so you censored the titles of my work as a stomach? And apparently it made a lot of people feel uncomfortable. And I don't know, I don't feel the same way, but I was at one of the exhibitions with one of these pieces, and I kind of just sat back and watched somebody. They were drawn in by this elegant, modern form, and they're like, wow, this is gorgeous. And they looked down to see the price probably and the title, and they saw stomach, and the look on this woman's face went, ooh. She cringed a little bit. So I had to go up and have a conversation and ask her why. And she just, she couldn't really say it. Just the idea of the stomach being this, using that juxtaposition of something that is, in some cases, people are not fond of them. But in this case, you're taking that word and making this really, really iconic form, I guess. Next. Oh, there's a little petal ray. She was born September 10th, 2011. So she just turned 9. Next. Oh, so again, if I have free time, I love to tie flies. I try to dye all my feathers and everything, and I tie these things to catch. Next, these things, which is, this is sort of, for me, is like, and a lot of people would be like the fish of a lifetime. It sounds kind of funny, but this is a Hoh River steelhead caught on the fly out on the Olympic Peninsula. And this is about a 20-pound fish, which is just huge. What a gas. So I spend a lot of time walking down rivers and spending time in the woods. Next. Here's a good photo of teamwork, and this is a little bit of the changing of the guard. So on the far left, we have Alex Stisser, Sarah Gilbert, myself, Gabe Feenan. Our MC at the time was Heather Cornelius and Nico Dimitrovic. Alex was hired here at the same time I was in May of 2002, and we worked together for a long time. He comes from a 6th-generation family farm in Galva, Illinois. And he got the phone call in 2010, said, all right, son, time to come home. Stop the glass blow and start farming. And he's been farming, and we stay in touch quite a bit. He still makes stuff on occasion, but not as much as he'd like. And we replaced him with Nico Dimitrovic. And Nico is a wonderful human being who actually worked here for about 5 years and left us in 2015 to pursue grad school. And now he's opened a fantastic coffee and donut shop in Detroit called Yellow Light. If you ever find yourself in Detroit, check it out. Next. 2012. Next. So here we had an exhibition of the MOG team at the Traver Gallery in Seattle. And it's called 12 Hands and 60 Toes. And it gave me the opportunity to explore an idea where I wanted to make a diagram of your inside. So we have a small lung form with a stomach form and like a little lozenge or lobe form on the right there. And these are pretty small, maybe 15 to 18 inches tall, and they're hung on the wall by a little stand. Next.
Ben, I just want to interrupt you for a second. We have a wonderful comment from Christine, who's a client of ours, and she's a physician. And
Oh,
she,
right on.
little bit of validation for you. As a physician, she thinks that your pieces are beautiful. The human body is beautiful inside and out, and you're doing an excellent job expressing that. So just wanted to share that.
Right on. Cheers. Oh, it's great. And here's another kidney and stomach form. And I think I still own most of these small diagrams. They're just languishing in a box, but glass doesn't go bad, right? I actually really like this composition, and I just think it's great. And again, they stand off the wall a few inches. Yeah. Next. Here's a piece titled Spare Parts. And so real traditional, straightforward Italian patterns made in these sort of kidney forms, just kind of playing on the idea that, someday we might get to a place in science where you can get sort of replaceable parts, right? So you could go down the store and get a kidney. And I guess the one on the very far left is gilded in silver foil. And that's just kind of like, maybe the next step. Next.
Do you do those in color, Ben, at all?
I haven't in a while. I haven't made those forms in a while, but yeah, I mean, I have. Those ones there are all sort of a black fancy cane that holds a very nice line, and then the silver one. But yeah, they could be. Next, this is a great inspiring shot. So this sort of went on to brace, which is the next image, and there's the idea of these two solid glass kidneys mounted on a stand. Next. 2013, let's see what we did there. So exploring some of the forms again, revisiting the Morcella pieces and adding a little bit more color and playing with the lines a little bit. Now you can see that seam running right down the center of the piece. It's pretty dynamic. Next. And again, this is from the open air market in Antibes. These heirloom tomatoes, just beautiful. They almost look plastic to me. I just thought they were amazing, but you can see how they influence my palette. Next. In this piece, which is the visceral lozenge and stomach in the front. So that nice, bright, saturated red underneath sort of a dense black with some light gray canes. Next. These pieces are inspired by river stones and leaves, of all things, and just kind of pairing those two together. So it's an oblique stone, and oftentimes there's words to describe the different forms of leaves, and pairing those ideas with a pattern that are inspired by visceral systems that you might find on leaves with the form of a stone. Next. Just walking out on the coast and finding this great bright splash of yellow on the beach with a gray sky, and it's just kind of a highlight in the midwinter. Next. Which brings us to this piece, and kind of you can see a similar influence in palette. Next. Now here's a great example of that seam sort of running right down the middle of this piece, which is another sutured lozenge. Next. And the color came from this picture, which came from walking around the streets in Biot, France. Nobody has, it's a town built in the 15 or 1600s. Nobody had yards, and so their gardens were their doorways, and they're beautiful and ornate. And I just thought these were very cool little flowers. Next. Some more stones. Next. 2014. Next. This brought the idea. I was able to have a solo exhibition at the Museum of Northwest Art, so I was able to take some of those ideas and ramp them up into larger scale. Now this piece here is titled Introspection, and these forms here, the stomach in the center is about 36 to 40 inches tall, so you can get the sense that this is about 4 feet tall-ish, well, 40 inches tall by about 4.5 feet wide. And these pieces are mirrored, and then they're sanded back, so as you walk up to it, you get a really distorted view and a very softened view of your own reflection. And it's just kind of an idea that maybe people need to slow down and have a little self-reflection. Next. Flower cells, an electron microscope image of flower cells. Next. Which now, thinking back to some of the prints that I showed earlier, this is my attempt at making microscope slides. So these are blown up to 8 by 24. Each panel is 8 inches by 24 inches long, and finding a way to blow up these microscopic images. So these are images of diatoms that I made. Next. This is called Body of Water. And these are all from that same exhibition at the Museum of Northwest Art in La Conner. Next. Electron microscope image of red blood cells and virus cells and some fat cells. Next. Which kind of inspired this. And so these panels are all the same, 8 by 24. The piece is a little over 8 feet long. There's about a 2-inch gap in between, and these are just an exploration into making those slides and just making this composition here. And we'll walk through a little bit how these are made in a bit. Next. This piece is titled Growth Rings, and so the idea of aging a human by the size of their femur, and you can find the age of a tree by counting rings. Next. So here's a crystal violet stain, and so these would be based on plant matter. And so thinking back to that image of plant flower cells, using traditional techniques, mucking with them a little bit to try and get some nice, funny, crisp imagery, organic imagery that you might see looking through a microscope. Next.
So Ben, are you taking these pictures yourself and then creating those slides? How are you doing this?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty good stack of imagery, and some of it comes through. I have a microscope for my iPhone, so I can clip it to here and put imagery on it and kind of scan through and take photos there. I also have a couple microscopes at home, which when I have time to kind of sit down and look through. Next. And these are very abstract, I would say, as well. So they're, I kind of have a starting point, and then I work through how to get somewhere close to it, if that makes sense. This is gathering. Next. Here's a process, and I think I have a few different images in here. So here's making patterns for some of the vessel work that you see. So once we have all the stripes or canes made, this is me laying them out and getting ready to pick them up to make, next, these patterned cups. And so here's a finished one, right? So this takes an incredible amount of time, but this is what the seam looks like ahead of time. Next, they go back into an oven. So I spend a day making all these cups. And then maybe a week later, after I've sorted through what I want to do and find out what color wants to go inside, then I heat them back up and we pick them up and we stuff them with a bubble. Next. And the result is one of these pieces here, which was actually at a show at Duncan's. And I believe it resides in St. Petersburg there somewhere. And it still is one of my favorite pieces. The form, the pattern, the color, for me, really work well together. And I love the crispness of the pattern in this. Next. So here's some newer work. These are actually the most recent works that were made right before we shut down. And now you can see taking some of those patterns and really kind of messing with them and piecing them together to get stripes going in different directions. Next. I think there might be, oh yeah, so here's some good detail of that. Yeah. And these are all based on the form of a mussel shell. So this is the sort of, they have different titles, but they're all based on mussels. Next. Again, it's another image of a piece from a bit ago. I believe this too was at a show with Duncan. Next. This is one of my favorites. Took all the color out, just nice white lines. Another low-baited suture piece. Next. And here's a process of making the slides. In I believe it was 2013. I had a residency at the Penland School of Craft in North Carolina. It's my buddy Shay Rhodes. He was there as well. And I have to make these giant cylinders to get the flat glass. Next. So here's a cylinder after it's been made in the hot shop. And if you look at the very top, we cut the bottom off. So it's open on both ends. Next. Then we slice it down the center with a diamond saw. And we're gonna put it back in an oven and heat it up to about 1200 degrees and unroll it back into a flat sheet of glass. Next. Which is gonna look like this. And then once they're out of the oven, next, I use a bit of a viewfinder and I have them water jet cut into these panels, which were shown earlier. Next. And that would be sort of the finished piece after they're done being ground and polished and sanded. Next. Here's, I'll give you a brief story about this piece. And this was the first mussel that I created. And it was done while I was teaching in Penland. And I did all the things. I made the cup and I had the color ready to go, and I'm teaching and showing the students what's going to happen. And one of my assistants said, hey, we got a problem. And as I was making the overlays, the cup blew up and it broke apart in 3 or 4 different parts. And I was like, oh, okay. And so my buddy Pablo said, permission to mess around. And he like put Humpty Dumpty back together again. So he put the cup back together, and it created these beautiful seams that you can see in the front of the piece. And while he was doing that, I kind of screwed up too. And I didn't get my second color, the red, all the way over the yellow. And I've been trying to loosen up a little bit. So we went through and we made the piece. And again, this actually is up there as well. This is one of my favorite things I've made in a really long time. And it was fraught with issues. But what the students got to see was things go wrong, even for people who have loads of experience. And I just kind of worked through it, and it led me in a different direction, which I really, really like. So next. So here's a more crisp, traditional patterned muscle form. Next. And a few years ago, I was invited to the Bellevue Art Museum biennial, and each year they do, or every 2 years, they focus on a different material, and this happened to be for glass. And so I did this is titled Puget Sound Shellfish Study. So thinking about when we have warm water events and the diatoms and bacteria that build up in water that create biotoxins in the shellfish. So each one of these shellfish, and the next photo, are hand cast by me, and I found the shells on the beach and came back and made molds and cast them. But they were picked for their ability to either shed the biotoxin or how long they retain the biotoxin in their flesh for a period of time. So just a little comment on our warming waters and current state of environment. Next. So here's some close-up shots, and these are all sort of the diatoms that I've seen in the waters out here. Next. And I believe that these are some images of sold work that some clients have sent in. So it's always, as a maker, it's nice to see where your pieces end up and how they're displayed and where they live now. Next. Another couple pieces. I believe these are at the gallery, correct? Next. Nice. This was actually from when I had a show down there with Duncan. This was one of the pieces that we made during the demo. Next.
And Ben, we do have a question. Someone that came in a little bit late asked if you could just readdress why you create the holes or lenses in your pieces.
Sure, and so the holes and the lenses, again, it was something that started actually when I went to school at Rochester Institute of Technology, great glass and sculpture program. I have a degree in glass and sculpture from there. And it started with just what happens if I punch a hole in the side of the bubble and gather on it, what happens? And it started there, and over the years, I've sort of developed and refined that technique to create these large sort of lens-like windows in the pieces. And it's just something that's intrigued me. It's something that's extraordinarily challenging to do. And it also is distinctly mine. I would never claim to invent anything. I would claim to develop it. And this is something I developed. And so when people see that, they're like, oh, that's Ben's work. And I think as a maker and as an artist, you try to there is an element that you try to have that is iconic to you. So when people see your work, they know, oh, that's a Ben Cobb, and it's sort of a thing for me. It's a technique. Other people have definitely tried it, but there's the real ones and there's fakes out there.
And
so,
thank
sure.
you. Can you address why you use or how you came to use the cane in that very specific way as well?
Sure. So we kind of talked about a little bit of using the canes and the stripes to reference muscle or sinew. And that's how it first started. And then just, kind of looking at, leaves and things, and underneath the microscope, you'll find many branches of how these things work. And so without using sort of a photoresist sandblasting to get that real distinct imagery, I'm just being inspired by it and taking a take on that, using these really fine stripes to evoke that sort of imagery.
Thank you. We have another question. A client said you've worked with so many wonderful artists, and who are your favorites?
Oh, that's a hard one. It's a good one.
And who's influenced you the most while we're at it?
Well, so that's a great question. I think that working out here, the exposure that we have to so many different artists, and it's not just glassmakers. We've worked with painters and poets and musicians, folks who make metal, ceramics, what have you, all walks of life, and it's been really awesome. I think some of my favorite folks typically come out of not in the glass world. So my friends and colleagues here are, of course, some of our closest friends, but artists that we've worked with, Andrea Dejo was a highlight. She's fantastic. Vivian Beer, she was fantastic. Early days was a fellow by the name of Gronk, and he does installation work and sort of temporary murals, and he was a contemporary of Basquiat and grew up at the same time in New York City and has an incredible backstory, but he lives and works in LA, and he was just a super dynamic person. So get to know some of those folks. I had the honor to work with Linda Benglis, so just sort of a rock star blue chip artist, and get to know her, and she was a riot and had just fantastic stories about New York art scene in the 70s and 80s, which was incredible. Donald Lipsky, it was a highlight. All the glass folks have been fantastic as well. So you can just rattle those off. Like Lino Tagliapietra has become a good. I have a cell phone. We can call him. I don't know. I visited him in his house in Italy. That's awesome. I've never dreamed that I would be doing that. Dante Preston, all those folks, Paul Cunningham, I feel very fortunate to be able to call those folks colleagues and in some cases friends. And so influence, I think, comes from, I always am reminded of hearing Dante's lecture, and he said, just, be good, be excellent, be kind. And that goes a long way because the world's pretty small, and the glass community and the art making community is even smaller, even though it's spread out across the globe. So word travels fast, I guess. And I think the influences sometimes come from talking with people, just the conversations that are generated while we're working on the floor over a beer at the end of the day, which we all tend to enjoy. We all sometimes, if people get on real good, we'll go out for a meal, or we'll have, get together at the house. And those kind of situations are sort of invaluable as to an artist and somebody. I consider myself I would say my younger career. I wouldn't say mid-career yet. So I have the opportunity to sort of take those conversations to heart and run with them.
How fortunate. And would you say that the organizations like the Tacoma Museum of Glass and other studios that bring artists together are really crucial in, creating this meeting place of ideas and inspiration?
Absolutely. I think that there's been an impact since opening our doors in 2002 and growing our visiting artists program here. I think it's become a big thing where, we're providing access where it wasn't before to a wider, more diverse group of artists. And yeah, I think that the opportunity for collaboration and development and supporting emerging artists, you can't put a price tag on it. When you have a residency at any of these places, you guys host a wonderful residency program, and it allows the artists to kind of put away the money side of things. Like when I work, it costs me a couple $1,000s a day to make work. So now you can understand why glasses can be so expensive. So when you have places like this where you get that opportunity to work without the constraints of the financial constraints or the financial worry, it can really kind of let your mind go free a little bit. So yeah, it completely so important. Can't stress it enough.
Thank you, Ben.
Sure.
And this we're happy to say just sold yesterday. So congratulations.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. And then here's a great photo. I don't get back to the East Coast much, but as the kids get a little bit older, they need to see their cousins too. So I got 2 brothers and a sister, and we all have a couple of kids around the same age. So this is taken at Gooseberry Beach. Beautiful sunset right before heading back to the West Coast. This was, I believe, last year. Yeah, last year.
Wow.
So I think is that it? Woohoo! How did we do on time? We did pretty good.
Ben, we made you work really hard during your lunch hour. I mean, that
Oh,
was
it's all
pretty
right.
incredible.
Yeah.
But it was really, really wonderful to see your inspiration and the advancement of your work over time, and your understanding of all the techniques. It's really, really such a pleasure to get to see something like this.
Awesome.
And you are such an amazing artist. I think everybody that has seen this would agree. Um, and thank you. You were one of our visiting artists at the gallery, what, 5 years ago, maybe?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, we'll have to have you back and see,
Let me
work
know.
in the new hot shop.
Yeah, be great.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Thank you.
But thanks again for hosting this. This was great. I'd gladly do this on my lunch hour. It's awesome.
All
Great to-
right, next week. No, next week we have somebody else. We have Julian Robin Rogers, but maybe real soon.
All right.
So,
Appreciate it.
would anyone else like to speak with Ben while we have him here for you? I think everybody's still got their jaws hanging open. It's been an incredible presentation. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we'll let you get back to your real work now. Okay.
Right on.
And thanks, everybody. Hope to
Thank
see you next week. Yeah. Thank you very
Great.
much.
Hey.
All right.